so beautiful. And here we are on St. Francis Day.
Saint Assisi's Day.
I love it. I love it. And as Reverend Maggie and I talked about it, we thought, animals have been so important in our lives, and with the great wisdom of St. Francis, we bring you animal wisdom.
And they are so wise and so pertinent to creating a full experience. Now, not all of us have pets, and for whatever reasons, busy lives and allergies and whatnot, but we cannot help but notice the richness and the fullness that the complete circle of life is when we recognize our four-legged and slithering and scaly and feathered friends that are joining us on this journey and contributing to our environment as we are, in fact, one with each other and with them.
It's so true. And so we found this great quote.
Yeah.
Tricia Markov has a book titled Animal Whisperer. So she comes from that knowing how important animals are. Her wisdom says, animals are the bridge between us and the beauty of all that is natural. They show us what's missing in our lives and how to love ourselves more completely and unconditionally. They connect us back to who we are and to the purpose of why we're here. Mm-hmm. I love this because as we can look at where we are, we know that animals have been an important part of our journey. I love it. When I first arrived here in New Braunfels, one of the first things I did is I went to the snake farm. Now, I thought it was a roadside, like Charm the Snake kind of place. I went in and I was stunned by not only the array of snakes, but the wonderful collection of well-cared for animals, mammals, all kinds. And there were even 2 baby white tigers. So beautiful. And it brought me a great knowing that there's much for me to know here in Texas about the love of animals.
I'm glad you brought up snakes. I still have some work to do around my love of snakes. Just going to confess that right now. But I really appreciate this wisdom that Tricia's sharing with us, because for me, I have always had animals in my life. I have had my first cat that was my very own. His name was Rocky. He was a Siamese kitty. And what I have learned through having multiple animals come in and out of my life and in my family is that they show me how to not sweat the small stuff, how to just slow down and enjoy a nice stretch of sunbathing and a nice bath and be appreciative of all of the love and treats and joy that comes with just my presence. So if I can be the kind of person that I think my dog thinks I am, then I'm really showing up the fullest I can be in the expression of pure divine love. And for me also, life happens, right? Ups and downs and sadness and tragedies hit our families, and my animals are always there to just be a pillar. They're just there without asking for anything. They have such an innate intuition that I have to believe comes from taking time in the silence, being present in each now moment, and being willing to love because that's what they are put in on the planet, and most definitely in my life, to just be. And I have such deep appreciation for that.
Well, that reminds me of a story, because when I was training to be a licensed Unity teacher, I went to Unity Village and I did my 3rd week of classes. And then there was a week before I did the skills demonstration seminar to get the credential. Well, anyway, I went to see my sister during that week from Kansas City, and I landed in Denver, and I got so sick. I mean, I was sick. High fever and chills, and I was not going anywhere. In fact, I was in bed. And my sister's animals, she had a dog, Cleo, and a cat, Laszlo, and they both stayed with me 24 hours a day. Except to go to the bathroom or to eat, they were right there with me. And when I had chills from the fever, Laszlo would lay right on top of me and warm me up. And when I was hot and feverish, she would just lay to the side. They know, and that they didn't know me very well, but they knew I needed something, and they nursed me back to health. Now, the day before I was to fly to Kansas City to do that testing, my fever broke, and I succeeded in passing my tests. So it's all
Thank
good.
you, Cleo and Laszlo. And it would be wonderful if we could take a page from our animal brothers and sisters and treat each other as human beings with such ease and grace and selflessness. In fact, St. Francis of Assisi says, if you have men who will exclude any of God's creatures from the shelter of compassion and pity, you will have men who will deal likewise with their fellow men. What wisdom, what a wonderful way to say, how far along ago? 1,000 years ago? And wisdom that has carried forward, because if we could look around at how we are rising up, as Steve said in our opening prayer today, we're rising up and we're awakening to how valuable we are in connection with one another. And it's a shame that it took this pandemic to break physical connection for us to go, oh gosh, we really want that. Not only do we want it, we need it. And it's no mistake that during this time, shelters have been emptied. People are going to where they can get soulful, compassionate connection. And that is in adopting our domesticated friends, our cats and dogs. But this is saying if you're recognizing someone who doesn't even have the common courtesy to treat an animal with compassion, with love, with patience and kindness, then why would you expect that same individual to treat his or her fellow man the same way? It just is a breath of eye-opening air, like, wow, how much we really need to practice loving unconditionally through our animals and to each other.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm an animal. And as an animal, I am finding that as I walk with other animals, and certainly this time, this really amazing curriculum of this global pandemic, this political unrest, the racism, the consciousness of awakening. And knowing that as we observe the practice of wearing a mask, protecting me, protecting you, there's consideration. There's looking ahead and allowing. I've actually found that there's more compassion on the road as people stop to allow people to make a left-hand turn or a right-hand turn. There's a little more space for us to give each other a little more room, a little more space. I think the social distancing has come into our knowing as a way of like, okay, well, I have a little extra space. You have a little extra space. Now let's see what we do with that space. And I'm choosing to look at it as a space where I can fill it with love. I can fill it with understanding. And there's times when I have to practice forgiveness, forgiving myself, forgiving others, because we don't always follow the practice of unconditional love.
Right.
Sometimes we get in a hurry, we get a little upset, maybe woke up on the wrong side of the bed, whatever. We're all allowed to feel whatever we need to feel, which gives us an opportunity to have that same compassion that we have for animals, for each other.
That's right.
We have this quote from Mahatma Gandhi, who says, "The greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated."
Absolutely.
I know this is true. And isn't it awesome how there's been a transformation of city zoos across our nation from being little mini cages, boxes, to being open environments where the animals are allowed to roam, even if they want to just go into their private space and not be available for viewing. And this is a huge transformation. Yes, we still have zoos, but they're done with greater compassion. And we can see that compassion in how children are treated, how the elderly are treated, how people with disability are treated. Not perfectly, but we're advancing in that ability to treat each other more caring. And it's certainly, you could draw a parallel between how animals are treated is a direct reflection of the person treating. Therein lies our world.
That's right. That's right. And, 100 years ago, one of the main forms of entertainment was a traveling circus, where animals were kept in horrid conditions. They were abused and neglected and kept in tight cages or on rail cars, even, where they couldn't pace or move or lie down. And then we fast forward to, in the 80s, it was the thrill of my life to go to one of our local aquatic theme parks and see great killer whales doing vast stunts and tricks. And I didn't think about it at 8 years old as this, is this enough room? Where did this beautiful orca come from? How did they come to acquire that? But that was in the 80s. And sure enough, within the next decade, people started to say, this isn't right. We shouldn't be holding our orcas, our zoo friends, and circus as entertainment. We need to be rehabilitating because we do have servants' hearts. As a whole, we want to see our animals treated fairly and justly. I mean, there has been Save the Whales and everything in between to shutting down some of those circuses. They're few and far between at this point. And that's a product of people waking up, raising their consciousness, stepping just one side step outside themselves and thinking, well, if I'm giving this organization my time and my money, what are they doing with it to make that orca's life better? And that is a product of just developing a richer self-awareness. And where are we contributing to our footprint on the planet and restoring those species that have been most gravely put in danger, a lot of the time because of us on 2 feet, right? So I just really appreciate that. And I one more thing is, I was talking with my daughter Jillian yesterday, who is lactose intolerant, and she was saying how she loved this one particular smoothie because it didn't have dairy. And we're driving down the road, and she said, Mom, it's 2020. Why are there not other dairy-free alternatives on a large commercial scale? And that got us talking about what is sustainable. And it's not a coincidence that here we are evolving and considering our planet and our animals and taking a look at what we're eating and how a plant-based diet is more sustainable. And that trend is definitely on the rise. And I'm no doctor, but I'd wonder where our health is going as a result of that. But it's, I think, going to be the next level of evolution in our consciousness. I'm looking forward to seeing how that pans out.
Beautiful.
And St. Francis of Assisi says, "Praise be you, my Lord, through our sister, Mother Earth, who sustains and governs us." So St. Francis of Assisi was definitely an animal whisperer. He was a lover and patron saint of the animals. And as a result of that, he also was connected and communing with and grounded in nature and recognized fully how it is a full cycle of life, how we are interdependent among each other and the elements that are provided for us on the earth. What a wonderful way to just do that exercise of stepping outside of ourselves and taking a breath of our small role as individuals, and how what we hold in mind and our practice in action actually does affect. That's the governing of the planet. And we have a responsibility in that. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And what this brings to my mind is that incredible picture of Mother Earth from space that NASA's provide us with this ability to go into outer space and look back. This beautiful pearl in the vastness of space, that's where we are. And everything on that is here to sustain us and give us what we need. I love our indigenous people who had this wisdom as part of their state of survival, was being gentle in the flow of life and observing the intricate complexity of how nature and life, our life, and the animals all work together.
Right.
There's enough space, or we can create enough space for the bison to roam, for the salmon to migrate, for the birds. I mean, we're experiencing right now millions of butterflies that are traveling, or the hummingbirds that are migrating to Mexico. It's all part of how we are completely in the embrace of the loving Mother Earth. I just, it's so incredibly mind-blowing and awesome. I can always see the great vastness of God by looking at nature.
Absolutely. Oh, and yes, go right ahead.
Well, this is here we are with indigenous people and the wise Chief Seattle. Chief Seattle brought forward, and this is in a letter he wrote to the president, if all the beasts were gone, men would die from a great loneliness of spirit. For whatever happens to the beasts also happens to man. All things are connected. You know, Maggie, I'm so grateful we decided to focus on this because animals are so important. In my own life, the first pet in the home was a beautiful cat named Fluffy. And Fluffy slept with me every night. And with that, I found a true companion. I found true friendship and love. And I was brought along in life by that union, by that friendship. And I know you've had great experiences with your pets, the ones you have right now.
Absolutely. They do bring purpose. They bring connection. They bring definitely joy and silliness to me. And I know my soul would miss that terribly. My home would be quiet and fur-free. I wouldn't have anything to gripe about on a regular basis. But when I think about this wisdom that comes from Chief Seattle, I feel like the invitation is for us to close our eyes and picture a time when we were in nature. Maybe we were standing on the edge of a canyon, and how it would be empty, less full, less beautiful, without hearing the sounds of rattles in the, not snakes, but just scurrying free critters in the bushes, the scream of a soaring eagle, the connection we each have with the spirit of the animals. I feel like I would be incomplete. I may feel even lost in my trajectory. My spirit animal is a raven, and it never fails when I need to come present, when I need an answer, when I need to touch that divinity within myself. A raven appears. And how I would experience a deep loneliness within my spirit without having the blessing of the multitude of amazing species besides us that walk this planet. And I really just appreciate this day in honoring St. Francis of Assisi and taking pause and offering the blessing of gratitude for all that they bring to our lives and into our environment and into our furry homes.
And the incredible world that we have, the diversity. I don't think there's any less of an example of how many animal shows there are.
Yeah.
And how we find such a fascination with the life and time of wild animals. Mm-hmm. And it's a call to us. It connects us with something bigger. And if none of that existed, if all animals were as extinct as 8-track tapes, no more, we would be bereft. I don't actually think that we could live. Mm-hmm. And so with this, let's take this knowing and this love of animals and the wisdom they carry for sustenance and the power to connect with humans even when they're wild. We have much to be grateful for.
Step out on the water, release your faith. Every step is stronger. Step out on the water.